Welcome back to the Green Means Go channel. It's your host, me, and we are here to go down memory lane. And I've had a lot of reservations about this video, but I decided to sit down and actually put the work in and come forward about my journey as a professional sports bettor. And I put that in quotes because I don't really consider myself a sports bettor, and I never really did. Part of that was because I was still teaching full-time while a lot of what we're going to talk about was going on. But also, I never really had the mentality that this was something I was going to do forever, even though I wanted to. I always knew in the back of my mind that it was going to come to an end, but I didn't want to accept that that was true. So it's hard to call yourself a professional sports bettor when you really only made money from this for, we'll call it the better of 4 years. But regardless, I've had a lot of questions on this, and so we're going to talk about it today. Before we do, I want to talk about my hesitations making this video. While it is my most requested video, I have people multiple times a month saying, hey, will you tell us about your journey as a bettor? Will you tell us about how you got started? Will you tell us about all the details? I'm still a little nervous. One, because there is a whole heck of a lot. That word is hopefully going to be added to the dictionary within the next 6 to 8 months. Heck of a. There's just a whole heck of a lot that's happened since 2019 when my state went legal, which is now 6 years. But even in the last 4, when I've really been focused, it just feels like so much to look back and cover. So much to talk about, right? And I'm getting choked up just thinking about it. I also have a hesitation of unveiling it all. There is, and rightfully so, this unspoken rule that you don't talk about this stuff in the industry. The more that you talk about it, the less that it lives on. But I am of the camp that people know. Sportsbooks know all of this. The world knows all of this. And I'm not here to leak any current edges or do anything like that. But I do think there is a lack of honesty and a lack of transparency in the professional sports betting space that has driven me nuts. And I'm not here to be a snitch. I'm not here to be a sellout. I'm just here to talk about my experience, what I learned, and hopefully what somebody watching this video who's curious, hopefully they can gain something from this. So I got this tattoo, all right? And I realize that's upside down. I got it yesterday, actually. And I used to teach English, and I taught Fahrenheit 451 to my sophomores. And I enjoyed this book. And if you haven't read it, I would suggest reading it. You could probably listen to it in a few hours. It's not a very long book. But there's a point where the main character realizes what he is doing is wrong as he is contributing to the man and the act of censorship and things of that nature. And he wants to question that, and he's going to question it by reading, because in this book, books are banned. And so, he sits down to read, and he's with his wife, and his wife asks, where do we begin? Like, we've never read. Like, this is all so new. And Montag, the main character, says, we begin by beginning, I guess, right? He doesn't know where the path is going to lead. He doesn't even know how to start, but he knows that starting is important. And so I got this tattoo because I reference that quote all the time in my own head. When I'm sitting down to make a video or to plan a video and I don't know where it's going, right? I'm hesitant. I don't know how to talk about it. It's a whole lot. There's a lot. We begin by beginning. So I sat down and I began. And I'm sure I'll leave out some parts, and I'm sure this is going to be a long video. But I'm here to kind of tell my story in sports betting. So we'll look at an overview, my pro bettor cycle. I started, and these are the things that we're going to dive into more deeply. I started as pretty much a degenerate, but a curious degenerate. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know what odds were. I didn't know what minus 200 meant. And to tell you the truth, minus 6.5, like that, plus 3, that was even confusing to me. I was ripe. I was unripe. I was unripe. I was green. Green means go. I knew nothing. I was an idiot. I was ignorant to it all. Okay. And I did have a desire to learn, though. We'll talk about my Reddit days where it really all started for real and becoming profitable, my Discord days and the various Discords that I was in, and then what happened and where we are now and how we look to move forward. So it started as a DEGEN but curious. I was a longtime DFS player, both on FanDuel and DraftKings and some of the various other ones that popped up from time to time. When I was 18, when I was in college, I love sports. I love games. I love puzzles. I love winning. I love competition. So it just kind of made sense that I would love DFS. And not only did I love that, but I love finding new apps. And there was this app called WinView. And this was probably my first edge. Before I even knew what an edge was, before I even understood any principles of sports betting, it was all about solving the puzzle. And I guess that's what it is. It is when you have an edge, right? You've solved a puzzle that other people may not have been able to solve, or the books couldn't even solve. And what WinView was it was these pools of 12 people, and you joined a lobby live during a game, and they would ask you questions during a game, like, on this drive, will there be a turnover? On this drive, will there be a punt? And you wager fake dollars, and then whoever had the most dollars at the end of the quarter, and they did this quarterly live, was the winner, and you would get more money. Well, I figured out within this app that if you waited to join the pool, the lobby of players, until the last second, like the game was about to kick off, you joined like as the players are lining up to do the kickoff, there's a chance that the lobby wouldn't fill. And they paid out the money regardless. So I would get in with 2 and 3 guys, and now my chances of winning money were a lot higher because I was competing against 2 or 3 other guys instead of 12 other guys. So I did this sun up to sundown. Whenever there were games on, I would wait until and there were some times where I didn't get in because I waited too long, but that was kind of like my first like adrenaline rush of finding an edge. And I made some money, right? And I just told my friends about it, and we would sit there live with our phones out, and we'd see, about to tip off, join. Okay, we're in this together. Okay, we're both in, and there were times where I was the only one in there. So I didn't have to make picks. They just paid me. The app went bankrupt, as you could expect. DraftKings ended up launching in the fall of 2019 in my state, and that's the Sportsbook. I was watching YouTube videos for education, right? What are odds? What are markets? But I found Reddit rather quickly. And this would be something that, is the first domino that gets knocked over. So in my early days of Reddit, I found r/Sportsbook. A lot of you may recognize this, especially the OGs. And there was a thread called Sportsbook Promos Bonuses Daily. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, I started getting emotional, like somewhat emotional when I looked back through this. I was going through my old Reddit comments and just kind of scrolling through, and I was like, man, like I didn't know how good we had it. I didn't understand how fun this was, how much I looked forward to this, how much this really was a massive part of my life. In that thread, I learned about sign-up bonuses. I learned about free bet conversions. I learned about the idea of arbitrage. And while they didn't call it plus EV betting at that time, that's really what we were all doing. And it later became known as that, or at least accepted as that. And then, the emphasis was heavily on that. One of the ideas within this is there's no leaked edge. I mean, people would post error lines. They would post ARBs. They would post glitches, and they'd last for minutes to hours. Guys, I could get on 2 sportsbooks on my iPad and my phone and just scroll through and find ARBs. I used to do this on home run bets. I used to go through and pull up Kambi and look at the no home run odds, or BetMGM, no home run odds. And then I used to go on DraftKings and FanDuel, and I would look and I'd say, oh, okay, plus 350, minus 300. That's an ARB. Bet that for as much, as much as I felt like I could. And I didn't need a software. You didn't need anything except 2 devices and some patience, and it would just last for hours. How times have changed. I think I made a name for myself. I think people recognized who I was on there. I often trolled, maybe to a fault. There was a promotion on FanDuel. It was a first basket promo. Bet who's going to get the first basket, and if they do or don't, regardless, you get $1 for every point they score. And so people would bet the Giannis's and the Embiids and people who were likely to get their $25 back. And there just was a streak of guys like Joe Harris, like just no name scoring. And so I started posting on there that FanDuel was paying off scrubs to make the first basket so they didn't have to pay out as much. And people were like taking it seriously. And I'm like, guys, I'm just like, people were mad at me. Like, no, you're an idiot. You think that actually is real? I'm like, no, but like I ticked a lot of people off on there. I don't know. Sense of humor within the sports gambling community is bizarre. It's just weird. But I did provide value where I could. I scrolled back and I found this from 4 years ago. It was probably one of the first college football Saturdays, and I went through every sports book and I just listed every promotion that every sportsbook has. Like, look at this. FanDuel, risk-free bet, amount may vary. I got 100, my wife got 25. Like, I had a $100 risk-free bet 4 years ago on FanDuel. DraftKings, 33% boost, 10% boost. Just all these books were begging for our money and giving away so much money. Like this point, 4 years ago, I was even promo banned on PointsBet. Wife and I both promo banned. So I was getting banned in some respects on some of these, but not enough to even flinch, not enough to even blink. Promos were abundant. Profit boost didn't really exist. Like that's all we see now is like 20% profit boost with a 5-leg parlay, free bets, insurances, 8 to 9 books giving out free money every single day. Promo banning was very rare. Obviously, MGM, you see I'm promo banned, PointsBet I was banned, but there was enough to go around that those didn't really hurt. And again, things have changed. Then I got a DM. That changed my life. And I say that as someone who doesn't like to exaggerate, doesn't like to use hyperbole. Without this DM, maybe I would have found a way to where I am today, but I don't know. This changed my life. Someone recognized that I was a consistent poster who loved promos and arbitrage and invited me to a paid Discord. This was my first, I didn't even have the app Discord at this time. I didn't know what Discord was. And it was a guy by the name of CENTARBITRAGE. He didn't send me the message. Another guy who was in CENTARBITRAGE's Discord sent me the message. And I believe it was something like $300 or $400 for the year. I actually believe it's $300 for the year. And the reason I put $400 is because that's how much money I made in my first night. That's how much money I made in my first night without knowing what I was doing. And I have the date where I signed up, Monday, September 6th, 2021. I sent him a message. He was actually a teacher as well. I said, hey, I'm a teacher. This is really interesting to me. I've been kind of learning about sports betting. I like the idea of arbitrage. Without paying you the whole $300 up front right now, is there a way I can like test it out, see if it's worth it? He's like, yeah, sure. I'll give you a day in here. First day I made $400. I signed up the next day. $300 for the year. Boom, boom, boom. And this was the start of me shaping myself into a professional sports bettor. And what he was doing is he's hitting the book's APIs when you could do that, when they didn't care, when you could scrape DraftKings and FanDuel and Caesars, you could scrape all their numbers because it was all public and they didn't have bots to protect it and captcha things to click on. And he was just feeding those arbs into Discords. And it was awesome. And you would get a ping whenever you had them. And if you got a ping and you had to pee and you had to wash your hands and you had to go get a snack and you come back, it was probably still there. And that changed. And today it's very different. And so I'm telling my story as it is, but I'm also recognizing the game is different. This is not possible to the level that it was today. I was lucky. I was blessed. I was fortunate. And I think part of telling this is to make it realistic for all of you who may be watching, like, oh, I want to do this for a living. Like I watch people on Twitter, I watch people online and they're professional sports bettors and they make all this money and they do all this stuff. And it's like, it's not the way it used to be done. And the people who do it now have significant advantages that we can talk about. And they're not realistic for everybody. So in this we called it Cent. CENTARBITRAGE is hard to say. We called it Cent. In his Discord, I was learning fast. I really started learning about the industry, and I met great people, all caps. Not only were they, intelligent people, they were good humans. And that's what I miss. I think I actually, I felt sadness when I was reflecting on this. I actually sent a message to one of the guys that I would say is one of the other guys that changed my life. And we'll talk about him in a second. And I said, man, do you remember this? It's not that long ago, but do you remember? He's like, I miss the interactions. I miss the cash flow. I don't miss the stress. I don't miss the tax time. But I think I look across the industry now, and maybe I'm biased or maybe I'm jaded. I just don't see as many good people because the space has gotten so competitive and it's gotten so walled. It's just gotten so narrowed in that you kind of have to be a certain type to excel in this. And a lot of that is being secretive and being closed off and being protective of what you have and your accounts and it's not as humane of an industry as it was when the low-hanging fruit was out there. So I do miss that. And this is when I really started tracking my bets. We'll talk about that in a second. This is where I found edges before I even knew they were edges. Soccer Corners Live we used to hit whenever there was a big, FIFA event, and we would all be on the Discord, and we would be checking out all the 12 games going on, and be like, oh, Southampton here, this number's good. Oh, this number's good. With FanDuel, DraftKings, you could get $300 and $500 down on corner bets without even the books wouldn't even blink. They didn't care. They just wanted volume. They didn't care what their odds were. They didn't care if their number was bad. I didn't care if their number was bad. I didn't care to decide, well, technically this number's off. I should play this as that's the plus EV side. No, I was just taking $20, $30, $40 every 10 minutes that I could. Do that 8, 9, 10 times, right? It adds up, and it added up. And so I didn't care about plus EV because the ARBs were good, and I was making consistent money with no stress. And then we got the plus EV and ARB disagreement. And I remember this is kind of where CENTARBITRAGE kind of had some fissures, some cracks, because there were people on there, intelligent people, smart. I mean, this is not something where I'm trying to throw shade, but it became these guys, it was kind of like you guys are wrong for ARBing in an ARBing Discord, which is kind of funny, right? Like if you're ARBing, one side is bad, bet that side, you'll make more money. You're just paying extra juice. And I could never communicate to them that I have a wife and I have a daughter, and I don't need a ton of money, but I also don't need a ton of stress. And I don't want to lose $500 on a corner bet when I can make $40 on a corner bet. If I sacrifice some ROI over time for peace of mind, guys, that was cool with me. And people look at that as wrong. I don't think it's wrong. It's different. And maybe it's not optimized, but I'm not a robot. I have emotions, which we've talked about. So I was always Camp ARB. There were also people at Camp ARB, but there were some plus EV people. I mean, this is where I learned about sign-up bonuses, capitalizing on new user offers, player twos, state to state. Guys, you used to be able to go to different states and get the sign-up bonus every time. You could go to Illinois, West Virginia, Tennessee, and hit all of those for the $2,500 MGM every time. Now they merge your accounts. Duh, they do. But there was a time where they didn't. And you could just claim over and over. And, people would do that. People took it more seriously than I did. But if I was on vacation and we stopped at a hotel, right, I was trying to sign up and I was trying to do this. There were other times where, FanDuel I believe it was when Louisiana, some down south state, went live. They had a crazy promo. I want to say it was like $5,000 risk-free bet or something like that. And somebody found in this Discord that you could change your URL browser. You could go up there and type, because all of them have the state name, the state like OH for Ohio or PA for Pennsylvania, and then FanDuel. You could just go up there and you could hit Louisiana, LA, FanDuel. You could claim it. And you could go back to your regular state and it would be on your account and you could bet it. So from our houses, we were capitalizing without having to go to Louisiana. We were taking advantage of this promo as if we were a new user. Those things they just don't happen anymore, right? And I was fortunate. I was lucky to be around and be connected to people at a time where that was a thing, right? And it's not lost on me that I was lucky. But I look at people now who act like it's so easy. No, it was easy back then if you knew the right people. But today, maybe it's easy. I just don't know the right people. But the low-hanging fruit's gone. So here's some screenshots. I called my Excel spreadsheet all the stuff. That's how I track my bets. I just labeled it all the stuff. So you can see 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024. And then this year, since I'm not betting every single day, I have a much simpler, much less beautiful spreadsheet. You can see how it changed. Pretty simple, getting more complex, getting very complex. And then I found something I liked in 2023. I would track every day. Every single day, I would write down every single bet I made. The amount, how much it could win, if it won or lost, my profit loss, and then in detail about it. I didn't go back and count. I mean, there are tens of thousands of bets over the last 4 and 5 years. Again, you can see how things changed. But if you look at this, right, like Miller 6 rebounds, Miller under 6 rebounds, like I was getting $400 on these player props, $375 on Bet365 to make $31 no matter what happened in the game. Oh, I took it here again. I got $800 on this line, right? If I hit this line twice on FanDuel, that's another 50. It's a total of $55 for nothing, right? And it was just That was my life. That's all I did. While I was working, even while I was teaching, I'd come home after teaching and I just have these alerts and I just log in, log out, log in, boom, 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 hit these ARBs, hit these ARBs, hit these ARBs. You know, it wasn't worth it to me to try to figure out who was the wrong side, who was not, right? Overall, probably was Bet365 a lot of the time. But I wasn't interested. Then I got a second DM that changed my life. And a new Discord had formed. It was called the Wolf of Arb Street. And Cent had gotten busy. The value was lacking. He had some kids, and I think they were having some health problems. So we didn't blame the guy. But a guy from Cent created his own Discord and was scraping OddsBoom for ARBs. And some of you will remember OddsBoom. Some of you will not. And it ran well for a while until OddsBoom. You could get OddsBoom, which was basically the first version of OddsJam. It was $15 a month. Guys, can you imagine? In the year 2025, $15 a month. Good old days, I'm telling you. OddsJam bought them out, and I didn't want it to end, so I paid for OddsJam, and we scraped OddsJam for a long time, and just used their service, and it was more expensive, but it was still worth it, way more worth it. A couple of memorable things from this. Some of you will remember the Draymond Green event, and I still believe that the Draymond Green event was the event that changed mobile sports betting. It was the time that made these sports books look at themselves and say, okay, we have been trying to get volume. We have been trying to encourage as much gambling as possible. Maybe we're susceptible to things and we don't realize it. So what happened was Klay Thompson, this was on January 9th of 2022. Klay Thompson was coming back from an injury. And Draymond Green, I believe, was still hurt or recovering, but he wanted to be out on the court for Klay's return as a teammate. And so 10 minutes before the game, an alert went out that said, Draymond Green will start and then sit the rest of the game. He wants to honor Klay. And so people realized, oh, I can bet all of Draymond Green's unders because these bets will be live since he started, but they'll have to pay out and he won't go over any of them because he's not going to play the whole game. And so I guess books thought he was going to play more. I don't know the whole story, but that's what happened. And I'll never forget. I was on DraftKings and I was clicking Draymond Green under and it locked and I missed it. I wasn't fast enough, but people were, and people took these sports books for millions. I mean, millions of dollars. At the end of the day, it was millions of dollars and they had to pay it out. And I believe that's when we started seeing limits. Shortly thereafter, we started seeing more and more accounts become limited. My best edge ever, and I've never talked about this. This is the first time I'm discussing this. I swore to secrecy on it, and I think the statute of limitations on that secrecy is gone just because it doesn't exist anymore. It can't exist. Likely my biggest profit and what I believe led to limits on DraftKings was game-to-game live tennis. I don't know why, but I was curious about finding any and every edge that I could. Before, again, I called them edges. And I was looking during a major tennis event. It was night, it was 10 p.m., and it was the only thing on. And I was looking at live betting, and I went to game by game. Who's going to win the first game in the set, second game in the set? And I was noticing that books were far off. Like so far off that I realized some books didn't even know who was serving. Some books would flip who was serving. And so you'd get numbers that were like plus 200, plus 175 on both sides. Now, what would the plus EV guys have done? They would have taken the person serving and they would have bet the error. Yeah, and looking back, I probably should have done that, but I wasn't thinking like that at the time. I was just seeing money, guaranteed money. And it was glorious. And I told like 2 people about it, and those 2 people helped me optimize it. And the guy who started the Wolf of Arb Street built software that was scraping all the main books in that market and was alerting. And for 2 and 3 years, every major that would come around all day long, you could sit at a computer and you could just print money on these ARBs. And then FanDuel started blocking, the back end scraping. Caesars, probably what got my limits on Caesars. They limited me to about $5 and $10 per for this market. So they were done. It just slowly started to die off, as you would expect. But that was probably my best edge that I ever had. Double-double ARBs. For NBA, books would offer no double-double. That was a market that existed. It no longer exists. Why? Because it was exploitable. This was our bread and butter. This guy who created Wolf of Arb Street figured out he could scrape lines before they were public on Caesars. Caesars would, in their back end data, would list what the odds were going to be before they came out. And so we were able to see what was going to be good and what wasn't. And so what you would do is you'd bet no double-double, typically on Caesars, and then on FanDuel or DraftKings, you'd bet yes double-double. Or if it was a guy like Anthony Davis or somebody who's a rebounder, you'd go points and you'd go rebounds. If it was an assister, you'd go rebounds, you'd go points. You know, you could build them that way and sometimes get better odds. And so we did that, and we hit those daily, multiple a day. And then live NFL touchdowns, and I'm going to cry. I wrote I'm going to cry because I'm talking about this and I'm seeing the numbers. I'm seeing the money that I made. And I'm just like, no wonder. Like, it's no wonder that I look at myself now and I want to make money doing this because I have conditioned myself to making the easiest money possible. And this really was. It was the easiest money possible. So what you could do is on FanDuel, you could bet a player to score a touchdown. FanDuel had generated their own live TD odds. They were an outlier often. They didn't match any other book. You could tell that they were an in-house touchdown market. Well, over on DraftKings, you could bet no touchdowns live, but it wasn't just no touchdowns. They compartmentalized it. So it was no rushing touchdowns or no receiving touchdowns. And so those of you who are quick with the mind or maybe even know this, realize that if a player, you bet no on his rushing and he gets a receiving, you win both. If you bet no on his receiving and he gets a rushing, you get both. And so here are some examples. Kadarius Toney, right? I had no receiving touchdown, but I had his touchdown here. He got an end around, a handoff, and so it counted as a rushing touchdown. And I don't like to talk about money, but I just want to show you guys just in a like I'm not going to talk about how much I made as a professional. I'm not going to do any of that, but I just want to show you, right? Like this is the stuff that was possible and is no longer possible, right? Like $2,500. It was a lucky middle. It was a good hit, and I was going to make money either way. But because I bet him, not to score a receiving touchdown, and he got a rushing one, this paid out. And because he got a touchdown, a rushing one, this paid out. And I probably had 3 or 4 of those middles in my time. You can see some of these game-to-game bets that I was making. I mean, DraftKings was taking $1,700, $2,000 on game-to-game. Now, $30. It's not possible. I can't do it. I can't bet this much. But my number one, best, most memorable, biggest win ever, I was asleep for. And I woke up to a barrage of messages. And this also puts in the context of this was a crazy win. And yeah, it feels good. Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, it was a lot of money. but it didn't feel good as much as you got a bet in on a guy's game and the other line changed, and so you let it ride and you lost $500. That hurt for days on end, knowing I lost $500 and I got to climb out of that hole. Winning a few grand, yeah, it feels good for a few minutes. It's like Scotty Scheffler says, right? Like winning feels good for 10 minutes. Right? And so as I get into this new age of sports betting, these are things that I'm having to weigh and think about as I refine my craft and an example for people across the world, which is maybe an exaggeration, but you think there's value in analyzing who you are as a bettor and saying, do losses hurt? Do wins feel good? Where's the balance? So this was the biggest win I ever had. I had Russell Westbrook, no triple-double, and I had Russell Westbrook, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. We left off points because him to get 10 points was like minus 2,000. And we said, it didn't change the odds. It didn't help anything. So let's just leave it off. And maybe we can get lucky and he can get a double-double with rebounds and assists. He can get those two, but he could also miss the no triple-double. So what happens is he makes free throw 1 of 1, which gave him 9 points. This was with 3 minutes left in the game. He misses the second free throw. So he didn't get 10 points, which we needed him to stay under 10. He misses the second free throw. He gets an assist. It didn't matter. He already had 10. Anthony Davis goes to the line with 2 minutes left. He makes the first. He misses the second free throw. Russell Westbrook, point guard, gets the rebound on the missed free throw offensively and then puts up a layup and misses it. So we got the 10th rebound that we needed. If you look down here, 10 rebounds. So that rebound he needed to cash our 10 rebounds, 10 assists. But he couldn't score again. And he missed a free throw, and then he misses a layup. Then he comes down and misses a 3 on the next possession. I mean, one of the best wins, most memorable, most lucky wins that I ever had. And it's gone. And Reddit was leaking my edge. I noticed that these yes double-doubles and no double-double arbs were drying up. Books stopped carrying that side. DraftKings stopped posting the no's. Caesars was kind of inconsistent. Reddit was all over them. I mean, Reddit would post these all day, every day, any that they found. And sometimes I would get to them before, and I'd already lock them in because we could scrape the lines prior. But a lot of times, they were finding ones that I wasn't, and then they were dying. So I talked to some people in Wolf of Arb Street, and we said, let's start a Discord. And the goal of the Discord was to add value to those who provide value. There were a lot of lurkers on Reddit. So you would notice that the same 10 or 15 people would be posting on Reddit, but how many hundreds of people were watching? So one person would post a good line, and then 50 people would bet it that never add anything. So we invited frequent posters. We kept it small, and it still exists to this day. It still remains small to this day. And it's changed to a very, very plus EV-minded Discord. And there are people in there that you'd recognize, and I don't want to out them, but it's probably one of my most impressive, notches on my belt, if you want to say that, in the gambling world, was getting all these people together. But the funny thing is, I think they'd kick me out if I didn't create it or wasn't an admin. I mean, I don't fit in there. They're all very math-minded. They're all very high risk tolerance. They're all very player 2, player 3, player 5, player 16. They're guys who devote a lot of time and energy and have, just they're professional. Those guys I think are professional sports bettors. And at the end of the day, I'm not. And so I'm in there. I engage here and there. But overall, the Discord still exists, but all of us are so limited. It's kind of just a hangout at this point. But it was my attempt to kind of preserve some edges. So the last year and a half, year 0.5, the limits have gotten more and more extreme. Promos have died down, not only in volume, but also in quality. Some of my limits, just as an example, DraftKings, $5 on player props. FanDuel, I can get probably 50. Caesars can't even use. ESPN, I just can't bet anymore. I'm at a point where if we don't call it recreation, I cannot bet. Can I bet? Yes. Do I want to bet ARBs for $5 and $5 and make 30 cents, make 20 cents? No, I don't. And so my time as a professional sports bettor, making money doing this, really, the juice is not worth the squeeze. It's over. So what do? I got this DM after I made my shirtless video, the one I made not too long ago where I was shirtless in it. Talked about the future of GMG. And I want to make a follow-up to this video. And hopefully, if I remember, I'll pin it at the top so you can go from this video to the next one if you're not tired of hearing me talk after 30 minutes. But this video, I have a lot to say, and I think it's more relevant now because it's live now, whereas everything I just talked about is fun to go down memory lane, but what does it do for us? So the DM says, it's almost like there is this wheel of acceptance. Start gambling, it's fun. My DEGEN and curious phase. Dig deeper, find edges. My Discord phases. Work with people. My Wolf of Arb Street phases. Become obsessed. Absolutely was I obsessed. Make serious money. Yes. Winning constantly. Yes. It's addictive. Yes. Then the rug is pulled. Anger, frustration, along with understanding, pursues. Next is acceptance, where I'm kind of at, but kind of still not, if I'm being honest. Then we are arriving at the other end of the wheel, basically where you're at, getting back to the roots, where gambling and entertainment is fun, and heck, maybe we can win a little along the way. And I guess my biggest thing, and as I look forward with GMG, is the goal, the dream of professional sports bettor for 90% of people is not realistic. Can you make money in the short term? Yes. Are there tools out there that can help you with that? Yes. But I think the wheel always comes back around where you get to a point where you say, okay, I can't do this long term. What can I do long term? And that's have fun. That's be entertaining, and still have a chance to win some money. So more on that later. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you all. We're closing in on that 10K, 10,000 subscribers number. So that's pretty cool. Some of you may watch this after we hit 10K. That's cool too. You can subscribe if you want. That's all I got for you. I love you all, and we will see you soon for this next video.